My name is Luke, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I'm 39, a software engineer by trade, and I've been married to Bella, my wife of 9 years, who works as a marketing strategist. Together, we built what I believed was a strong, stable partnership. Bella and I met in our late 20s through mutual friends, and we hit it off almost immediately. She had this vibrant energy about her, a mix of confidence and creativity that I found magnetic. She could light up any room she walked into, and I often felt like the luckiest guy in the world to be by her side. Our marriage had its ups and downs, like any relationship, but I always thought we were solid. We worked hard, supported each other, and even when life got hectic, we made time for the little things, movie nights, weekend getaways, and long talks over dinner. But as the years went by, I noticed subtle changes. Bella became more and more invested in her online presence. At first, it was innocent, just her sharing updates, funny anecdotes, or moments from our travels. But over time, it seemed to consume her. She'd spend hours scrolling through social media, curating posts, and keeping up with influencers and trends. I didn't think much of it at first. She worked in marketing, so staying connected online was part of her job. But there were moments when it started to bother me, like when she'd be glued to her phone during dinner or laugh at something on her screen but brush it off when I asked what was so funny. "I'm just decompressing," she'd say, dismissively. And I'd let it go, not wanting to seem controlling or overly sensitive. Still, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder if her increasing attachment to her online world was pulling her away from me. Sometimes, I felt like I was competing with her phone for her attention. But I chalked it up to the modern world, where everyone seemed tethered to their devices. Looking back, I can see the cracks were there all along, small, hairline fractures that I ignored because I didn't want to face the possibility that something deeper was wrong. I had no idea that Bella's obsession with social media wasn't just a harmless hobby or a part of her job. It was the tip of an iceberg that would eventually upend everything I thought I knew about her, about us. The truth was hidden in plain sight, buried beneath layers of curated photos and clever captions. And when I finally uncovered it, it would leave me questioning not just our marriage, but my own sense of reality. It started with little things, moments that felt too small to call out but too strange to ignore. Bella had always been quick to share snippets of her day with me, whether it was a funny interaction at work or a random thought that popped into her head. But lately, her conversations had grown vague, her laughter more private. I'd catch her on her phone late at night, scrolling or typing furiously, with an amused smile or the occasional soft chuckle. When I asked what was so entertaining, she'd shrug and say, "Just a funny meme," or, "Oh, it's nothing." She never used to hide her screen from me, but now, when I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock her phone or switch to a different app. At first, I convinced myself it was harmless. Bella had a right to her privacy, didn't she? Everyone needed their space, and after nearly a decade of marriage, it felt petty to question her every move. Still, the changes in her behavior left me uneasy. One evening, we were sitting on the couch watching a movie, and her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced at the screen and her expression changed, something between startled and annoyed. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Yeah," she said quickly, grabbing her phone and silencing the notification. "Just a work thing." But it wasn't like her to get tense over work texts, especially not on a Saturday night. That was when the first seed of doubt planted itself in my mind. A few days later, Bella left her laptop open on the dining table while she went to take a shower. I wasn't snooping, I swear I wasn't. But as I walked past, the screen lit up with a notification from an app one didn't recognize. The username was what caught my eye, Free Spirit Bella. It wasn't a handle I'd ever seen her use. Bella had always been straightforward about her accounts, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. This one was different, anonymous, and completely unlike her usual professional tone. Curiosity got the better of me. I sat down and clicked on the notification, which opened a profile on some platform I didn't recognize. My heart sank as I scrolled through the posts. The photos weren't overtly incriminating, just candid shots of Bella at coffee shops, parks, and places I didn't recognize. But the captions and comments were different. One caption read, "Another beautiful day for a little freedom." Another, "Sometimes you need to step outside the routine to remember who you really are." And the comments. Men's usernames appeared under the posts, leaving messages like, "Beautiful shot, Bella," or, "Hope I get to see that smile again soon." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Who were these people? Why was Bella posting things she'd never shared with me? When she came back from her shower, I closed the laptop and acted like nothing was wrong. But my mind was spinning. The username, the photos, the comments, they didn't align with the woman I thought I knew. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was looking at a version of Bella I'd never met, a version she'd intentionally kept hidden from me. It was just the beginning, but even then, I could sense that whatever I was about to uncover would change everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that profile, Free Spirit Bella, with its carefully curated photos and cryptic captions. The comments, too, played on a loop in my mind. Who were those men? Why did Bella feel the need to keep this side of her life a secret? The next day, while Bella was out running errands, I decided to dig deeper. I knew it was wrong to invade her privacy, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't loosen until I had answers. I reopened her laptop and found the platform again. It wasn't one I was familiar with, but it looked like a mix of Instagram and a forum, a place where people could post anonymously but still build a following. Bella's account had hundreds of followers, and her posts dated back over a year. The photos told a story I didn't recognize. There were shots of her at trendy cafes, hiking trails, and rooftop bars, places she'd never mentioned to me. Some posts featured close-ups of lattes with intricate foam art, others showed scenic views from what looked like weekend getaways. The captions were vague but suggestive. Sometimes the best moments are the ones you keep for yourself. When the world feels small, I remind myself there's more out there waiting for me. Freedom is intoxicating. As I scrolled further, I noticed recurring names in the comments, users who interacted with almost every post. One name stood out, Jason K. His comments were more personal than the others, more familiar. That view is even better with you in it. I'm counting the days until next time. You make every moment unforgettable. I clicked on his profile, my hands shaking. His account was private, but his profile picture showed a man who looked to be in his early 40s, with a confident smile and a neatly trimmed beard. His bio read, "Adventurer, coffee enthusiast, lover of good company." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. The puzzle pieces were starting to fall into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. Then I saw it, a post from Bella, dated 3 weeks ago, of a hiking trail. She was standing on a rocky overlook, the sun setting behind her. The caption read, "Grateful for the company that makes this view even better." Jason K. had commented, "Unforgettable day. Can't wait for the next adventure." My heart sank. I checked the date and realized it was the same weekend she told me she was at a work retreat. It wasn't just the photos or the comments, it was the realization that Bella had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. This wasn't just a hobby or a creative outlet. It was a life she'd built without me, a version of herself she'd chosen to share with someone else. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. I knew I couldn't confront her yet, not without more proof, not without knowing exactly what I was dealing with. But one thing was clear, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved and trusted for nearly a decade, was keeping secrets. And those secrets were about to tear our life apart. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with uncovering the full extent of Bella's hidden life. My thoughts were consumed by the anonymous account, the cryptic captions, and the man, Jason K. Every interaction between them replayed in my mind, feeding a storm of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. I began keeping track of Bella's behavior with a new level of scrutiny. Every time she laughed at her phone or disappeared into another room for a work call, I wondered if she was messaging him. I started noting the times she left the house and the excuses she gave: meetings, errands, yoga classes. Each story felt more like a smokescreen, and I couldn't trust anything she said anymore. One evening, while she was out, I found myself scrolling through her account again. This time, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. In one of her older posts, a photo of a sunset over a lake, I spotted a reflection in her sunglasses. At first glance, it was nothing, but when I zoomed in, I saw the outline of a man standing beside her. It was blurry, but the silhouette matched Jason's profile picture perfectly. The timestamp confirmed it was the same weekend Bella had told me she was visiting her parents. The lies were stacking up, and each one felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. Fueled by equal parts desperation and rage, I decided to dig deeper into Jason K's life. His profile didn't offer much, but a reverse image search on his photo led me to his LinkedIn account. He worked in real estate, lived a few cities over, and appeared to be single, at least officially. I couldn't stop myself. I clicked through his posts, searching for any connection to Bella. Sure enough, I found it, a photo of a coffee shop they'd both posted about on the same day. His caption read, "Great coffee, even better company." Bella's post from that day, "This place is a gem. Love discovering new favorites." It wasn't just a coincidence anymore. They were together, and they weren't even trying to hide it, at least not from anyone but me. That night, I sat in the living room, waiting for Bella to come home. My heart raced as I tried to decide how to confront her. Every possible conversation played out in my head, but none of them ended well. When she walked through the door, smiling and carrying a bag of groceries, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Bella," I said, my voice sharp enough to make her pause. "We need to talk." She glanced at me, her smile faltering. "What's wrong?" I stood up, holding her gaze. "Who's Jason?" Her face went pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything, her eyes darting around the room like she was searching for an escape. "What are you talking about?" she finally asked, her voice shaky. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table and opened her anonymous account. "Don't lie to me, Bella. I know about Free Spirit Bella. I've seen the posts, the comments. I've seen him." Her bag slipped from her hand, groceries spilling onto the floor. "Luke, Don't," I interrupted, my voice rising. "Don't you dare try to deny it. I've seen everything. The trips, the photos, the lies. How long has this been going on?" She stared at me, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice breaking. I needed something. Something I wasn't getting here." Her words hit me like a sledgehammer. My mind raced, trying to process the weight of her confession. This wasn't just a mistake or a lapse in judgment, it was a deliberate betrayal, a double life she'd chosen to build without me. "Something you weren't getting here?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "So your solution was to sneak around and lie to me? To share your life with someone else?" "I didn't know how to talk to you," she said, her tears falling freely now. I felt invisible. Jason made me feel alive again, like I mattered. I couldn't listen to any more. Her excuses, her justifications, they were hollow, meaningless. She'd made her choices, and now our life together was unraveling because of them. Without another word, I walked past her and into the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. The weight of what I'd uncovered was suffocating, and for the first time in years, I felt completely and utterly alone. The days following Bella's confession were a haze. I felt like I was walking through a nightmare, each moment filled with a suffocating weight that refused to lift. The house that once felt like home now felt like a prison, every room a reminder of the life we had built together, and the lies that had torn it apart. Bella tried to talk to me, but I couldn't bear to look at her. Her apologies felt rehearsed, her tears like a performance. Every time she opened her mouth, all I could hear were her excuses. I felt invisible, I didn't mean for it to happen, and it wasn't supposed to go this far. But it had gone far, too far. The evidence was everywhere, from the photos on her anonymous account to the comments from Jason. It wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a choice, repeated over and over, to prioritize her secret life over our marriage. I spent hours replaying everything in my mind, trying to pinpoint the moment it all started. Had I missed the signs? Had I been too focused on work, too blind to see the cracks forming? The questions haunted me, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. One evening, unable to stand the silence in the house, I decided to confront the full extent of Bella's betrayal. I reopened her account and started scrolling, reading every post, every caption, every comment. I forced myself to look at the photos, the ones of her smiling at a rooftop bar, hiking with Jason, sipping coffee at places she never mentioned to me. The captions told a story of a woman who felt trapped, yearning for freedom and excitement. But the comments, those told a story of betrayal. Jason's words were intimate, familiar, the kind of things a man says to someone he's deeply connected to. One comment, in particular, made my blood boil: "You deserve the world, Bella. I'm so lucky to be a part of it." I clicked on his profile again, my anger simmering into a cold, focused determination. Jason wasn't just some passing fling. He was deeply entwined in Bella's life, a man she'd chosen to prioritize over me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, consumed by thoughts of revenge. Bella's betrayal had destroyed me, but I wasn't going to let it define me. If she thought she could walk away from this unscathed, she was sorely mistaken. By the time the sun rose, I had made a decision. I wasn't just going to confront her anymore. I was going to make sure that both Bella and Jason felt the full weight of their actions. They had built their secret life on lies, and I was going to tear it down, piece by piece. This wasn't about getting even, it was about reclaiming my dignity and ensuring they couldn't continue their charade without consequences. They had underestimated me, and now, they were going to see the cost of their betrayal. By the time Bella woke up that morning, I was sitting in the kitchen, her laptop open in front of me. I'd spent the entire night gathering every piece of evidence I could find, screenshots of her posts, Jason's comments, even timestamps that matched the days she had lied about her whereabouts. When she walked into the room, still groggy and in her pajamas, she stopped short. The look on her face when she saw the laptop confirmed everything I already knew. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and steady. She hesitated, glancing at the laptop, then back at me. "Luke, Sit down," I said sharply, cutting her off. She obeyed, her movements slow and cautious, like she knew she was walking into a storm. I turned the laptop toward her, the screen displaying her Free Spirit Bella account. "I've spent all night reading your lies," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Every post, every caption, every comment. And you're going to explain all of it." Bella's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "I've already told you." "You haven't told me everything," I snapped. "You've given me excuses, half-truths, and meaningless apologies. But I want the whole truth, Bella. When did this start? How long have you been lying to me?" She took a deep breath, her hands shaking as she gripped the edge of the table. It started about a year ago, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to, but I felt so disconnected from everything. From you, from myself. Jason was just someone who. Don't you dare try to justify this, I said, my anger boiling over. You felt disconnected? So instead of talking to me, your husband, you created a whole other life behind my back. You shared yourself with him, the photos, the moments, the intimacy that should have been ours. Her tears were falling freely now, but I felt no sympathy. I was too far gone, too consumed by the weight of her betrayal. Do you even understand what you've done to me? I asked, my voice breaking. You've made me question everything, our marriage, my own worth, my ability to trust anyone ever again. Do you even care about the damage you've caused? I do care, she sobbed. I was selfish, I know that. I didn't think about how it would affect you, I needed to feel alive again. Alive? I said, laughing bitterly. You needed to feel alive, so you killed us. You killed everything we built together, and for what? Some fling with a man who doesn't even have the guts to be honest about your relationship. She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I didn't mean to hurt you, Luke, she whispered. But you did, I said, my voice steady now, the anger giving way to cold resolve. And now, you're going to face the consequences. I stood up, closing the laptop with a sharp snap. I'm done being your fool, Bella. You can keep your secrets, your lies, and your precious Jason. But you're going to see what it's like when the truth comes out. She looked up at me, her face pale with fear. What do you mean? You'll find out soon enough, I said, walking out of the room. You and Jason both. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of control. Bella thought she could hide behind her anonymous account, her carefully constructed double life. But now, the mask was coming off, and I was going to make sure everyone saw her for who she truly was. After the confrontation, Bella grew quieter around me. She was nervous, walking on eggshells, clearly unsure of what I meant when I said she'd face the consequences. It wasn't an empty threat, I'd meant every word. I was done being the passive victim. The first step was gathering everything I needed to expose her lies. I combed through her anonymous account and Jason's posts, taking screenshots of anything incriminating. The photos of their outings, their flirty comments, and the matching timestamps painted a clear picture of their affair. But I didn't stop there. I dug deeper, finding connections between Bella's account and her professional life. She'd made the mistake of tagging locations and even mentioning projects that aligned with her work timeline. It wouldn't take much for her colleagues to recognize her account once it was made public. As I pieced everything together, a plan began to form. Bella had built her reputation as a dedicated, professional marketing strategist. Jason, on the other hand, had a polished image as a reliable real estate agent. Their public personas were carefully curated, but their actions behind the scenes told a different story. I wasn't just going to let them get away with what they'd done, not without consequences. The first step was creating a burner account on the same platform Bella used for her anonymous posts. Using this account, I compiled the evidence into a neatly organized narrative, detailing the affair in a way that was impossible to deny. I included screenshots, dates, and cross-references to their public profiles. Next, I waited for the perfect moment to release the information. Bella had a major work presentation coming up, one she'd spent weeks preparing for. Jason had recently announced a new partnership in his real estate business, boasting about his professionalism and integrity. They were both at the peak of their respective careers, with everything to lose. I felt a mix of emotions as I finalized the plan. There was anger, of course, anger at the betrayal, at the lies, at the way they had humiliated me. But there was also a grim sense of satisfaction. They had built their relationship on deceit, and now, that foundation was about to crumble. The night before Bella's presentation, I uploaded the evidence to her work's internal forum. It wasn't difficult to find. A quick search revealed the portal where employees shared announcements and updates. The post was anonymous, but the content spoke for itself. For Jason, I took a different approach. I sent the evidence directly to his business partners and a few key clients, attaching a message that read, "Thought you'd want to know the truth about the man you're working with." Once everything was set in motion, I sat back and waited. Bella and Jason had stolen my sense of stability, my trust, and my peace of mind. Now, it was their turn to face the chaos they'd created. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. They had destroyed my life, and I was determined to show them what it felt like to have everything they valued ripped away. The morning after I executed my plan, I could feel the tension in the air before Bella even said a word. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, her face pale and her hands trembling. "Something wrong?" I asked casually, pouring myself a cup of coffee. She glanced up at me, her eyes wide with panic. "Luke, something's happened. Someone posted everything." "Oh," I said, feigning surprise. "What do you mean by everything?" Her breathing quickened as she struggled to explain. "My account. Jason. The pictures. It's all over the company forum. Everyone's seen it." I leaned against the counter, taking a slow sip of my coffee. "Maybe you should have been more careful about your secrets, Bella." Her eyes filled with tears as the weight of my words sank in. "You did this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "How could you? How could I?" I repeated, my voice sharp. "How could you, Bella? You lied to me, betrayed me, built an entire life behind my back. And now you're upset because people know the truth. Spare me." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, her expression crumbling further. "Jason," she muttered, answering the call with shaking hands. I couldn't hear his words, but Bella's side of the conversation told me enough. "No, I don't know who did it," she said, her voice cracking. "Yes, I'm trying to handle it." "No, just don't say anything to anyone." She ended the call abruptly, burying her face in her hands. I watched her for a moment, feeling a flicker of satisfaction. For once, she was the one scrambling to pick up the pieces. By midday, the full extent of the fallout was apparent. Bella's company had issued a statement acknowledging the situation and confirming that they were investigating the matter. Meanwhile, Jason's real estate firm removed his name from their website and posted an update about maintaining the integrity of their business. Social media was ablaze with whispers and speculation. While I hadn't explicitly named Bella and Jason, the evidence I'd shared was damning enough that anyone who knew them could connect the dots. Friends and acquaintances started reaching out, asking questions I ignored. Bella spent the day locked in the bedroom, alternating between furious phone calls and tearful silences. When she finally emerged that evening, her face was a mask of exhaustion and anger. "Congratulations," she said bitterly. "You've ruined my life." "No, Bella," I replied, my voice cold. "You ruined your life. I just made sure everyone saw the truth." She didn't respond, retreating to the couch with her phone. I could hear her typing furiously, likely trying to salvage whatever she could. But there was no undoing what had been done. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was satisfaction, yes, a sense that justice had been served. But there was also a lingering sadness. Despite everything, Bella had been a part of my life for nearly a decade. Watching her unravel was a reminder of what we had lost, even if it had been built on lies. I reminded myself of one thing: this was her doing. She had made her choices, and now, she was facing the consequences. And while it didn't erase my pain, it brought a sense of closure I desperately needed. The aftermath of the exposure hit Bella harder than even I had anticipated. Her carefully crafted professional persona, built over years, crumbled in a matter of days. Her company's investigation moved swiftly. Within 48 hours, she was called into a meeting with HR. The leaked content had reached clients, colleagues, and even senior leadership. The anonymous posts, combined with the photos and timestamps, painted a damning picture of unprofessionalism and dishonesty. When Bella returned from work that day, her face was pale, her movements sluggish. I didn't need to ask what had happened. "I've been suspended," she muttered, her voice barely audible. "Pending further review." I simply nodded. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity. She had done this to herself, but the fallout was brutal nonetheless. Meanwhile, Jason's life was unraveling in parallel. News of his involvement spread quickly among his clients and colleagues. Real estate was a business built on trust, and the revelation of his affair with Bella shattered that trust overnight. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd lost several high-profile clients within days of the leak. His business partners, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal, were reportedly considering terminating their association with him. Despite their shared destruction, Bella and Jason seemed to turn on each other. I overheard snippets of their heated phone calls, blaming, accusing, each trying to shift responsibility for the mess they had created. "You should have been more careful," Bella hissed during one call. "I told you this was a bad idea from the start," Jason shot back. Their relationship, built on secrecy and lies, couldn't withstand the harsh light of public scrutiny. By the end of the week, Bella stopped answering his calls altogether. Social media, too, was unforgiving. Bella's anonymous account had been deactivated, but not before screenshots of her posts circulated widely. People who knew her professionally and personally began to whisper. Former friends distanced themselves, and even some family members expressed their disappointment. "I don't know how to fix this," she said one evening, her voice hollow. "You can't," I replied coldly. "You've made your choices, Bella. Now you have to live with them." As much as I wanted to feel triumphant, watching her spiral was more sobering than I'd expected. She spent her days alternating between frantically trying to salvage her career and sitting in silence, staring at her phone as if willing it to bring good news. But no good news came. By the end of the month, Bella received official notice from her company. Her contract was terminated due to conduct unbecoming of an employee representing the organization. Jason, too, had his partnership dissolved and was quietly removed from the firm. They had both gambled with their reputations, and they had lost. I could have reached out to her in those moments of despair. I could have offered comfort, or at least civility. But I didn't. She had destroyed my trust, my sense of stability, and my peace of mind. Watching her face the consequences felt like justice. Bella's downfall wasn't just professional. Friends stopped inviting her to gatherings. Family stopped calling as often. She was becoming isolated, trapped in the wreckage of her decisions. And for the first time, I felt free. Free from the lies, the doubt, and the weight of her betrayal. While Bella struggled to pick up the pieces of her shattered life, Jason faced a downfall just as steep, and just as deserved. Word of his involvement with Bella spread rapidly in his professional circle, despite his attempts to deny or downplay it. The evidence I had shared was too damning, too detailed for anyone to believe his excuses. Clients withdrew their contracts one after another, citing loss of trust as the reason. His business partners moved quickly to protect their reputation. They issued a statement disavowing his actions and formally severed their ties with him. His name disappeared from their website, his smiling face replaced by an empty placeholder. Socially, Jason didn't fare much better. His friends, many of whom had seen the screenshots and whispers online, began avoiding him. At first, he tried to maintain a facade, posting on his personal social media about new opportunities and moving forward. But the comments under his posts were relentless, calling him out for his role in the affair. One comment stood out to me: "Funny how you preach integrity when your actions tell a different story." Jason's attempts to rebuild were clumsy and desperate. He tried to start his own real estate firm, but the scandal followed him. His name was now associated with dishonesty, and in a business built on reputation, that was a death sentence. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that Jason had moved out of his upscale apartment and was living with a relative. His adventurous lifestyle, once flaunted on social media, had disappeared entirely. Despite his crumbling life, Jason still tried to reach out to Bella. I overheard her rejecting his calls, her voice sharp and tired. "I can't talk to you, Jason," she said during one heated conversation. "This is all your fault." They had turned on each other completely, blaming one another for the mess they were in. Their so-called connection, once full of flirty messages and shared adventures, had disintegrated into resentment and accusations. One evening, Bella confronted me about Jason's downfall. "Did you send something to his work, too?" she asked, her tone accusatory. "I warned you both there would be consequences," I replied evenly. "You chose to ignore me." She didn't say anything after that, but the look in her eyes told me she finally understood the depth of her actions, and the extent of the damage they had caused. Jason's collapse was a mirror of Bella's. They had both built their lives on lies, and now, those lies had caught up with them. The world they created in secret had crumbled under the weight of exposure, leaving them to face the harsh reality they had tried so hard to avoid. For me, seeing Jason face the consequences was the final piece of closure I needed. He had been a stranger who had inserted himself into my life, turning it upside down. Watching him fall felt like justice. Jason and Bella were no longer the confident, carefree people they had been in their hidden world. They were broken, isolated, and left to pick up the pieces of their ruined lives. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally moving forward. As Bella and Jason's lives unraveled, I found myself standing at a crossroads. The anger that had consumed me for months had started to fade, replaced by a quieter determination to reclaim my life. For the first time in years, I wasn't tied to the chaos of Bella's lies. I was free to rebuild on my own terms. I moved out of the house, leaving behind the memories that had once made it a home. I found a small, modern apartment closer to work, a space that was mine alone. The silence was jarring at first, but it was also liberating. I spent my evenings rearranging furniture, hanging new artwork, and turning the apartment into a sanctuary. Therapy became a regular part of my routine. At first, I was hesitant, unsure if talking to a stranger would help. But my therapist, a calm and insightful woman named Dr. Avery, helped me process the whirlwind of emotions I'd been carrying. "It's okay to feel angry," she told me during one session. "But don't let that anger define you. Use it as fuel to build something better for yourself." Her words stuck with me. Slowly, I started to rediscover parts of myself I'd lost during my marriage. I reconnected with old friends, people I'd drifted away from as Bella and I became more insular. I started going to the gym again, not just to get in shape, but to clear my mind. Work became a refuge as well. My focus improved, and with it, my performance. I took on challenging projects, earning the respect of my colleagues and a promotion that came with a pay raise. For the first time in a long time, I felt capable and confident. Bella, meanwhile, continued to spiral. Mutual friends told me she was struggling to find work. The marketing world is small, and word of her scandal had spread far beyond her previous company. She'd burned bridges she hadn't even realized existed. She reached out to me once, sending a long, rambling email filled with apologies and regret. She claimed she wanted to make amends, to at least have some closure between us. But I didn't respond. Closure wasn't something she could give me. I had to find it on my own, and I was finally starting to. Jason, too, had faded into the background. His attempt to start fresh in real estate had failed miserably. Last I heard, he was working odd jobs to make ends meet, a far cry from the polished professional image he once projected. The life they had built together, full of secrecy and excitement, was gone. It had cost them both everything: careers, reputations, and the illusion of happiness. As for me, I'd stopped looking back. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And after everything I'd been through, that was enough. As the months passed, I began to reflect more deeply on the events that had upended my life. The pain of Bella's betrayal, once raw and overwhelming, had dulled into something manageable, like an old scar that no longer ached but served as a reminder of what I'd endured. Bella and Jason didn't fare as well. Their lives, once intertwined in secrecy, had fully unraveled. Bella's attempts to rebuild her career were met with resistance at every turn. The marketing industry wasn't kind to scandal, and her name had become synonymous with unprofessionalism and betrayal. She'd moved out of our home shortly after I left, renting a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Friends and family who had once rallied around her had grown distant, tired of her constant apologies and lack of accountability. The confidence and vibrancy that had once drawn me to her were gone, replaced by a shadow of the woman I once knew. Jason, too, had disappeared from his social circles. His once promising real estate career was in ruins, and rumors of his financial struggles began to surface. Mutual acquaintances whispered about his failed attempts to rebuild, his strained relationships, and his increasing isolation. The final blow came when I heard through a mutual friend that Jason had reached out to Bella, desperate for some semblance of their old connection. But Bella, clinging to what little pride she had left, had refused him. Their relationship, born out of lies and deceit, had left them both broken and alone. As for me, I'd found something unexpected in the wreckage of it all: clarity. Bella and Jason's actions weren't a reflection of my worth, they were a reflection of their own flaws and insecurities. It took me months to accept that, but once I did, I felt lighter, freer. I'd rebuilt my life from the ground up, creating a version of myself that was stronger, more self-assured, and less willing to settle for anything less than what I deserved. I wasn't naive enough to think I was completely healed. Scars like these never fully fade. But I'd learned how to live with them, how to let them remind me of the lessons I'd fought so hard to learn. I'd stopped thinking about Bella and Jason as much. Their downfall was inevitable, and while I couldn't say I felt sorry for them, I didn't feel triumphant either. Watching their lives crumble had been cathartic at first, but in the end, it was just sad. Life moves on, and so did I. I found joy in small things again: a good book, a long walk, a quiet evening spent in peace. And while I wasn't ready for a new relationship, I felt a glimmer of hope that someday, I might be. As I sit here, writing this, I feel a strange sense of peace. The betrayal that once defined me has become just another chapter in my story. Bella and Jason may always carry the weight of their choices, but I refuse to let their actions dictate my future. They chose deceit, and they paid the price. I chose to rise above it, and I'm stronger for it. And that, I've realized, is the greatest revenge of all.